the Guymon Utilities Authority. At this time, I'd like to invite Preacher Gary Holden to come up front and give us the invocation.
All right, let's pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for your love and grace in our lives and in our community. We thank you for these servants who are leading us. We pray that you would help them to make good decisions and help us all to appreciate this community that we live in and the freedoms that we enjoy. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I might remind anybody, if you haven't, would you please sign in so the city clerk will have an accurate record of everybody that's here tonight. Agenda item number 2 is approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Crone,
Aye.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Livingood,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Public comments, announcements. One thing I want to remind everybody before we ask if there's anybody here, the Guymon Community Theater is going to present the play Oklahoma this weekend and next weekend. We've got several folks that are on city staff that I think are involved in the play. We got the sheriff, and I don't know, one of the dancing girls maybe, but David Clapsaddle's in it, so go out and enjoy a good evening of entertainment. And after our last council meeting, Guymon is honored on November 19th. Duraje Mbago, and I probably pronounced his name wrong, he's a freshman at Guymon High School. Well, he competed in the National Cross Country Coaches National Youth Championships, and he won as a freshman. So he's a national champion in cross country, which is quite an achievement for a young man. He was competing against high school kids up to, I think, 19 or 20. So anyway, any other public comments or announcements? Let's see. Yes, sir, Brian.
My name is Brian Watson. I'd like to reintroduce myself. I work for IPS. I'm the program coordinator. I have 7 years of local government experience with the city of Auburn, Alabama, and the city of Anniston, Alabama, where I worked under the city manager there. I've been with the city of Guymon for the past 2 years. It's been a wonderful experience, and I'd like you guys to know that if you have any questions or any comments, please let me know, and I'd be happy to answer them today or tonight. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Good evening. My name is Derek Barton, and I am the new general manager for KGYN Radio. I've been meaning to get here for over a month and a half, but I just came in to introduce myself. I've been here a month and a half, and we are making some major changes with the radio station. If any of you have ever been in the old radio station, it was a disaster. Within about a month or so, we will have the remodel completely done. We are 10,000 watts right now. Eventually, we are going to 50,000 watts to cover a large area, which will make our coverage. We're working more with the city. We're getting press releases, everything like that, so we can get the word out. Also, OPSU, and try to bring the station back to what it was, and a hometown radio station, a regional radio station. So I've met Larry several times and stuff, and I've met the mayor once before, so I just want to take this opportunity to finally get in here and introduce myself, and if there's anything that the city needs, council needs to get out, please feel free to reach out to us. Our doors are always open Monday through Friday, and let us know what we can do to help.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Any other public comments and announcements?
Since most of the next items on here are mine, I thought I'd make a little quick comment before to give you a little heads up. I know the water leak on 24th Street by Tractor Supply, we've got that all finished and buttoned up. We haven't done the final patching, but the roads have been opened at nights for travel on that. But that's all safe. And in fact, we'll leave that for a little while for the crushed concrete we put on the edge of the road because it got into the road significant amounts. In y'all's reports in the morning, you'll see some pictures of the steps that we took through that. But we're gonna wait a little while before we do the patching, and we'll do some concrete repair on that driveway as well, but we wanna make sure we don't have anything settling. Anticipate settling is gonna happen, because you don't have a hole that deep and not have settling over time. It's just gonna happen, we anticipate that. We just wanna let you know that. In that report as well, will be some of the pictures of things we're talking about, some lift station parts and stuff that we're gonna pay request on. You'll see some pictures of those in our possession tomorrow, along with our Lucy and GovMotus and performance metrics reports that will go out every month. So those things will be out in your report tomorrow. And then I'm just here for the next 5 hours. Thanks.
Mayor, we have one other presentation. We've got, we had a little show and tell today with our soccer complex, and we have our consulting firm here, and they'd like to give you a little update on where we are with the soccer field.
Bring out a chair, maybe.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is John Fielder, Kinley Horn, and I've got Aaron Rader with me as well. We were here in October as we got started on the soccer complex, so we wanted to come here and just give you an update. We got started the very next day. We had a user meeting or a meeting with the soccer user group, and David Clapsaddle and Aaron and I sat down with them, gathered some ideas, performed our site analysis and documented that, and then took that forward into a concept diagram where we split out where some of the uses were going to be, and then developed the 3 concepts that you're looking at there. So we had options that included the potential off-site parking next door at the school. We've since coordinated with the school and their architect, and they are open to that idea. So we are going to pursue developing a site plan that works with what their plans are for their school expansion. Steps from here is we gathered a bunch of good comments tonight at the meeting. So we're gonna shake all that down and develop one final concept using the comments we received tonight, the site plan from the architect of the school, and any additional comments that we received from staff or from council. And from here, we're planning to get that done before Christmas. So December 22nd is our submittal deadline for the final concept. And then we'll do a 3D rendering fly-through video in January after that. So we wanted to show you all the concepts and just thank you all for having us out here. And if you have any comments or anything like that on the layout, please let us know.
Was there one concept that stood out?
Concept A was seemed to be the preferred option based on the meeting tonight, just because having the parking offsite provides more room for fields, so you can get 5 fields on that option. And the other general comments were they liked that option, but they wanted to see an option with the playground and a walking trail, which that one isn't shown on concept A. So more than likely we'll have off-site parking with some of those items incorporated.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Members of the council, my name is Austin Boring. I just have a few things. A couple of things that concern me. One that was brought to my attention about a month ago is when we had an IBTS employee that was per contract being basically paid by the city of Guymon through IBTS in a sense, and then to find out that individual had been working 3 days a week out of the 5 in another community under the direction of IBTS concerns me. I understand since then that the city has been, my understanding, reimbursed, but it's kind of like running a stop sign. You don't get to tell the officer you'll stop twice, second time. It happens. Another thing is on the soccer complex, two different aspects of it. Y'all talk about budget cuts and stuff like that. What's not being brought up, I think, is what it's going to cost the city on a yearly basis to maintain that complex. We're talking a lot of ground to take care of, and our Parks and Recreation Department's already cut pretty thin, especially for our budget. I think that needs to be considered as to how that's going to be paid for and maintained. Donations are great, but it's going to be up to the city to maintain it. Another thing is that the Planning Commission, speaking as a member of the Planning Commission, this next Tuesday we have a meeting to discuss a couple of agenda items, and on that, I have requested for us to discuss and amend our current zoning ordinance, which is dated 1998. I think it's time that the Planning Commission start being a little more proactive in getting a current zoning ordinance and building codes and stuff like that, and getting that presented to the city and working in that direction to where everybody can get on the same page, because to have a 20-year-old zoning ordinance, even though we have ordinances that we pass, people still refer to this ordinance online because that's the only document they can pretty much see. So it gives a lot of confusion. And I think it's time we clear that up as a planning commission. Other than that, that's all I got. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments and announcements? Agenda item number 4 is discussion and possible action on approval of change order number 5 for DB&E for a decrease of $774 on the Water Well 35 contract project.
This is just a final cleanup change order on that project, and the next item will be the final pay request for that. So this is just getting everything lined up for the final pay request on that project.
Any questions? Comments? Motion?
I make a motion that we approve change order number 5 for DB&E for a decrease of $774 on Water Well 35 contract A project item 4.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second.
Crone,
Aye.
Livingood,
Aye.
Alveders,
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 5 is discussion and possible action on approval of final pay request to DB&E in the amount of $11,154.35 for the Water Well number 35 contract A project.
Any questions on this? I
Where,
think this is
where exactly is that located?
that was the one by the cemetery
Okay.
that we started and ended up having to back that up to move to the one we're talking about later. So
Okay.
that's just for the work that they performed. This should be the release of retainage and everything that was held back 5% on that work, and that'll close in at that project.
Any questions, comments, motion?
Make a motion that we approve final pay request to DB&E in the amount of $11,154.35 for Water Well number 35, contract A item 5. Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Swager,
Aye.
Crone,
Aye.
Alveders,
Aye.
Livingood,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 6 is discussion and possible action on approval of invoice number CIV 2147 in the amount of $33,350 to Cardinal Engineering for the 8-inch force main and lift station project.
This is the project that y'all approved to move forward about a month ago. I don't think it was last council meeting, to go out to bids. Bids will be open December 12th here in council, and this is for the bid specs and the stuff to get everything ready for that project. But the bid opening will be December 12th.
And that's over on Hurdle.
That's on Hurdle. It'll be a force main up close to the cemetery there for future growth.
Right.
in that one.
Okay.
That's a project that finishes your revenue bond, your T-15 revenue bond, that's required to be expended, obligated and expended by February of 2018. So we're right on schedule for that.
Any other questions? Discussion, motion?
Make a motion that we approve invoice number CIV 2147, the amount of $3,350. Cardinal Engineering, item 6.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second.
Swager,
Aye.
Livengood,
Aye.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Kern,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 7 is discussion and possible action on approval of invoice number CIB 2148 in the amount of $4,500 to Cardinal Engineering for water well number 23 replacement project.
So this is the project, 23 was the original one, 23R is the replacement where we scooted over beside it to replace casing issues. We're using a different type of casing for corrosion problems that we had before. That's one I've been giving a little bit of updates on that. You'll see some stuff tomorrow. But they're down. I think they got to red bed today. And so now they're at the point they're going to start setting casing and start to produce that well. As far as the contractors, and this is just for the engineering through the process up to this point for Cardinal Engineering.
I'll make a motion that we approve invoice number CIV 2148 in the amount of $4,500 for Cardinal Engineering.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Kern,
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Livengood,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 8 is discussion and possible action on approval of invoice number CIV 2149 in the amount of $5,750 to Cardinal Engineering for the lift station renovation project.
Again, this is for the project of the lift station renovations. We talked a while back. We have 7 lift stations that they're renovating. This is just some of the contract management up to that point. We are getting materials in, have most of them in. There's some pictures of some of it shrink wrapped tomorrow in the report. Looking at starting for construction on that where they'll start hitting it in about 2 weeks. So it'll be moving pretty fast at that point. This is the engineers, just continuing engineering through that process.
Questions, comments, motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve invoice number CIV 2149, the amount of $5,750 to Cardinal Engineering.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Kern,
Aye.
Livengood,
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 9 is discussion and possible action on approval of pay request number 2 in the amount of $360,362.55 to Slattery Construction Corporation for the lift station rehabilitation project.
And this is for the materials on hand that we have stored in our yard over at Utilities Department. It's all shrink wrapped and prepped. It's the control panels, the pumps, the housing, the slabs, fiberglass liners that we're putting inside the concrete for stop the corrosion problems. And a lot of those components. We had another request, and I don't remember. It seemed like it was over 100,000, and some of the stuff came in. This is just for materials that are coming, less repaintage.
Mayor, before you call for anything, I would like an explanation on everything that we've voted on tonight and the necessity of it and why it's in place, why we need to go through an engineer. And I think I talked to Mr. Mitchell about it. He's got a good answer.
Well, these are all projects that are funded under the 2015 revenue bond. And all of these projects require approval from DEQ, which means you have to have a certified set of drawings and plans submitted by a licensed engineer, and those have to be approved by DEQ. So as you do these projects, you're seeing, first of all, you're seeing the design of the projects, paying those bills to the engineer, and now you're seeing the inspection work that the engineer is doing on each of the projects that have been approved by the council.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any questions, motion?
I make a motion that we approve pay request number 2 in the amount of $360,362.55. Slattery Construction, item 9.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second.
Swager,
Aye.
Livengood,
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Kern,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Is there any new business? Notwithstanding adjourned as the Guymon Utilities Authority, will reconvene as the Guymon City Council. We've already done agenda item number 2 is attendance roll call.
Peterson.
Here.
Swager.
Here.
Crone.
Here.
Alvedras.
Here.
Livengood.
Here.
Ms. Hawkins.
Here.
Mr. Petty.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Agenda item number 3 we've already done. Agenda item number 4, public comments and announcement. Agenda item number 5 is discussion and possible action on approval of resolution number 17-17. A resolution approving City of Guymon policy for write-off of uncollectible accounts receivable. Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Wagner.
What y'all have before you is a resolution mainly for policy. In the event we have a certain account and we don't have a lot of them, but we would put it into this specific file per se, to get it off of our collection efforts. Mainly because we don't at this point have a policy written up for uncollectibles. In the event we keep going, whether it's within our collection agency or whether it's in-house, we just don't really have a stopping point. So what you have before you would kind of give us an outline to where we can file it and say that's where it is.
I might add that this account would be set up to deposit any utility bills that the collection agent is unable to collect on, and those write-offs then would go into this fund and be held in that account for 5 years. The end of 5 years, that list of uncollectibles would fall off, and so you'd end up with a 5-year rolling account average. Because right now you're just compiling a list of accounts receivables that aren't really receivable. I mean, you're just showing a number in your audit report that's not ever going to be collected. So this is a way to get those uncollectible bills off your audit report.
Are these reported to any type of agencies?
The one we use is called American Municipal Services. They do most of it. They will go through the process. Once it gets to a certain point in the city, we turn it over to them and they do their efforts to try to collect.
So did any of this get reported to the credit agencies?
No, sir. They do not get reported within a credit agency.
Is there a reason for that?
Mr. Petty might could chime in, but it has to do with municipal government that we cannot, so they will not be sent to a credit report.
Is that state law? or-
I didn't hear your question.
I'm curious if, after the time limit and everything, if they're reported to like a credit agency.
If they are reported there,
Right. And he says they're not, and I was just curious, is that state statute?
No.
or-
no, there's no statute that prevents that.
Currently, AMS does not send it to a credit agency.
Is there another agency we could use?
We could possibly look at other agencies.
I mean,
We'll check it with.
Any questions on the write-off policy plan?
So there currently is not a policy.
Correct.
So there's not a set amount.
Right. There's
Up to 5K, 10K, or what
right.
either treasurer or city manager can sign off of.
Right. There's not a current policy in place. The same whenever it comes in and they say, we really don't have any grounds to stop or cease effort at this point, and we need something in place where we can go forward.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 17-17, a resolution approving the city of Guymon for policy for write-off of uncollectible accounts receivables.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Crone.
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Livengood,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 6 is discussion and possible action to issue notice of presentation of petition for annexation of a .81 acre tract adjacent to the Guymon city limits on US Highway 54 on December 14th, 2017 at 6 p.m.
Mr. Mayor, that date of December 14 will need to be changed to whenever the council sets the last council meeting in December. That'll be the meeting that it would be presented at. So with that, and that's something that's the next agenda item that you're going to decide. So that, whatever date that is, that's the date that would go in the notice.
Okay.
Dave Clapsaddle, Planning Director for the City of Guymon, and we have no objection to the request for annexation.
Where's this located at?
Can you bring the map up?
It's on Highway 54 out by the Hog Slat in that area there.
Okay.
It adjoins another piece of commercial property.
Yes, it adjoins C2 property, which is why we're suggesting in the ordinance that it be brought in as C2. There's really no sense to do any other designation.
So our action is just to start that.
Your action is just to issue notice that the matter will be taken up at that last council meeting.
But there's no binding on down the road if we decide.
No, this is simply giving notice that you will consider it at the last council meeting.
Okay.
I misunderstood that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Questions, motion?
I'll make a motion that we give notice of petition, present of the petition for annexation of a .81 acre tract adjoining to the Guymon city limits of Highway US 54.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Crone,
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Livengood,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7 is discussion and possible action on the rescheduling of the last city council meeting in December due to the holidays. I presume. Anybody have any thoughts?
Instead of the 28th.
It would be the 28th would be our regular meeting.
Right.
The only suggestion I would make is that we'd like to have it done before the 23rd of December, since that's the deadline for adopting a municipal budget, 7 days prior to the fiscal year, so it needs to be prior to December 23rd.
So would the 21st work? So does that give you enough time?
Well, we have the public hearing scheduled for the 14th, so depending on how many revisions or changes you make in the preliminary budget, if the public hearing's on the 14th, and we certainly would need probably 3 or 4 days to make any adjustments or changes before we have it on your agenda for adoption.
That's the 21st.
Anybody got any problem?
We can do it early.
Is that your schedule, Chip?
Yeah.
You don't have to do it at 6
Check the
o'clock
water.
tonight. You can
We can, Mayor, we can pick any time also if you want. It needs to be done as a priority.
Time?
Time's not an issue.
Is 6 o'clock the regular time? Is that fine with you or?
Whatever works, whatever you guys want to do is
Fine with me.
fine.
Fine with me. Everybody.
I'll make a motion that we reschedule the last city council meeting from December 28th to December 21st at the regular time of 6 o'clock.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Crone.
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Livengood,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
All right. Agenda item number 8 is discussion and possible action on conducting an executive session to discuss contract negotiations with city manager applicant as authorized by Title 25 Oklahoma Statutes 307B1.
Make the motion, we go into executive session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Swager,
Aye.
Crone,
Aye.
Living Good,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Got 5 ayes.
We'll adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Living Good,
Aye.
Swager, Crone,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
We'll reconvene as the Guymon City Council. No negotiation was reached at this time. Agenda item number 10, discussion of the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2018.
Thank you, Mayor. In your package, you had a proposed budget worksheet that was about 150 pages, so I'm not going to walk through that one with you tonight. But I handed out to you a copy of a spreadsheet that Marcy did, which is a Guymon Fund Summary, and it summarizes each of your activity funds, both for the general fund and the utility authority. And what I'd like to point out to you, if you look at the last column or next to the last column there, it shows ending fund balance of $2,381,000. And during our workshop in late October, we heard from the council that one of your main priorities was to try to maintain as much of that fund balance as possible. So I think we've accomplished that. But this is a summary of the 150 pages that you have in your packet. The other handout I had for you is a budget narrative that I did a little 4-page narrative, and I sort of kind of walked through where I think the city is currently, and tried to do some summaries on comparing our proposed budget to last year. And if you'll turn to page 2 of that narrative, preliminary budget summary, general fund, and if you want to check those numbers, I'm not good at editing my own work, so you might want to check those numbers, but you can check the numbers on page 51 of what we handed out to you in your spreadsheet. But if you compare general fund current year FY 2017 to 2018, you can see revenue and expenditure for 17 and for 18, and if you look at across the page there, you see that our proposed budget for 2018 is reducing revenues about $1 million, and the primary reason for that is what we've talked about all along, is particularly sales tax and gas revenues. For some reason, gas revenues are down significantly below historical numbers, and I'm not sure why. You must have had a really cold winter 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, because 4 years or 5 years ago you were collecting $5 million in gas revenue, and today you're barely hitting $4 million. So there's $1 million difference right there. Then sales taxes are down about 4.5%. But what I wanted to show you there is the subtotal under revenue expenditure for 17. You can see a negative $679,000, and that number represents how much we had to bring out of fund balance last year to balance our budget. And in 2018, that number is $234,000. So we're making progress, we're making improvement, but we're still in a negative position. And then if you look further down for the utility authority, you do the same comparison, and you can see that for FY17, it was a negative $552,000, but in 2018, in our proposed budget, we're actually in a black number. We're actually in a positive number there. So we are making ground. It just doesn't feel like it. We're making a lot of ground up. And so we are moving in the right direction. And then on the following page, on page 3, is a summary of what I would call the major changes in the general fund and the utility authority on the revenue side. Sales tax revenue collections we're projecting flat for next year. It's $3.1 million. We're proposing an increase in ambulance fees from $900 to $1,200, which will generate additional revenue, and the budget for next year will be $500,000 total revenue. And as I said earlier, the gas utility revenues, we're reducing that number by $250,000 because we're just not collecting that amount of revenue. If we have a real cold winter, maybe that revenue will start bumping up. I think that the next three are probably the most important. We're proposing a 5% increase in the water rate, which we think over last year's budget is going to be an increase of about $270,000, which gives you a total of $3.6 million. 5% increase in sewer rate for a total budget of $1.8 million. And in the last one, a proposed $5 surcharge for sanitation. And as we talked in the workshop, the idea of taking that $5 surcharge, putting it in a dedicated fund for capital equipment so that we can purchase a grapple truck and a trailer perhaps and start doing curbside collections and get a lot of that trash out and junk out of our alleys, because right now we're doing a lot of that pickup manually, and it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of manpower. You have worker comp issues, and I think it's going to be, in the long run, very beneficial to the community to start getting that material out of the alleys. So that would be the major revenue changes. On the expenditure side, we're recommending combining Community Development Planning Department. And then we're also proposing to transfer municipal court back to the city from IBTS and then add a city treasurer position. So under B, you see a negative 120, and then you'll see the city treasurer position adding 75. So the net there is about $30,000 or so, a little bit more than that. We're also recommending a 4.5% reduction in IBTS service contract for next year. And we're still negotiating that contract. We're getting closer, but if we have a little ground yet to go. And I guess at this point, if we're not able to negotiate that budget number by the time we have to adopt the budget, then we may have to make some sort of a budget amendment mid-year. But we only have about 3 or 3.5 weeks before we adopt a budget. Increase in the Southern Trent contract to operate our wastewater treatment plant, 2% increase. So the cost for operating that facility is now at $1.3 million, a little bit over that. We want to put some more money in the street maintenance fund, adding $75,000 to that fund, and then recommending transferring 50% of the cost for operating, or the contributions we make to PTCI, the chamber, Main Street, to have that $60,000 coming out of hotel motel tax versus out of your general fund budget. And then finally, council just approved new contracts for fire and police. And we think for this year, for 2018, to collect the combined cost of those contracts, about $50,000. But if you remember, those contracts included a new pay plan. And the first year, the implementation is going to be more expensive than the future years because you're transferring or moving all the employees over to this new pay plan. So we think it's going to be about $50,000 in 2018, but I think in 2019 it will be a smaller number. And then finally, some issues that we didn't address in the preliminary budget: golf course, library, economic development, and non-union employee benefits and wages. We haven't made any changes there, but if revenues come in better than expected, or we are able to make some other adjustments, then council might want to consider a mid-year salary adjustment or some other benefit. Municipal government in Oklahoma is hamstrung in one sense, and that is that because fire and police have union agreements and they're able to go to arbitration, they basically have a preferred position when it comes to city employment. And I don't know if you followed this issue much over the last 7 or 8 years, but there was a push 5 or 6 years ago to get the legislature to pass a bill that would allow general employees to unionize. And some employee groups did try to unionize, but it wasn't very successful. So that's always been an issue for municipal government. It's something that I don't particularly like, but it's not something I can do much about. So now that we've done something for our public safety employees, then we should start looking at ways to do something for the balance of the employees here. It's not intentional. It's just the way things work. And then finally, I made a couple comments about where I think we are, and the other, I guess my final remark would be that at the end of 2018, the city will start paying off some of their debt service, and you'll see some cash freed up. Marcy and I think that by the end of 2018, you may have somewhere around $300,000 that you'll be able to allocate in the 2019 budget for capital projects, street improvement program, whatever you would like to, however you'd like to allocate that money. And then I'd also recommend that the council look at some level of the GO bond to start a street improvement program. And I gave you an example of a 10-year issue would generate about $5.5 million that you could use for street improvements. So those are kind of the highlights. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you. And if you would like to have a budget workshop, that's fine by me. I think next week probably would work. We have scheduled the public hearing for the budget on the 14th. I guess we could have a budget workshop prior to the public hearing on the 14th if you prefer to do that. So let me know what your priorities are, what your preferences are, and obviously if there's something you want to talk to me about, you can do that at any time. Send me an email, or don't send me a text message. That's a little cryptic. But give me a phone call or whatever, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. If it's something that I can't answer, I'll try to get that information from Marcy. But we'd like to have any changes or revisions you want to make. We'd like to try to do that between now and the 14th, because it becomes difficult at the end, trying to make these changes and revisions at the end. So I'd rather do them now versus later. And if there's any errors between the numbers I gave you in the narrative and Marcy's number, use Marcy's number. Because I sort of rounded up and generalize those numbers. So if you add and subtract, they're not going to come out to the same number Marcy has. So that's my disclaimer.
I got a couple questions.
Sure.
Where does, and you don't have to answer it now, but these proposed water rates and sewer rates and the surcharge,
Yes.
where would that put us comparably with other towns our size?
We did
Other
that.
cities,
We did
counties.
that last year. I think we did an analysis last year, and I think we're in the bottom half. I don't think we're the top half. And I attached to that narrative a schedule of rates so you can see the impact of that 5% on the rates. There was an article in the Sunday Oklahoman last week that Oklahoma City is going to raise their utility rates 10% a year for the next 4 years. 40% increase in the next 4 years. And it has to do with the cost of maintaining your systems, your water collection system, water distribution system, your wastewater collection system, running the plant, all those things. So
There's a big difference, Oklahoma City.
well, yes, there
Guymon.
is, but there's also a cost of operation, a per capita cost of operation that you can look at. For example, Oklahoma City has water they can pump I mean, they have lakes they can pump water out of. Guymon has to drill a well. You drill a new well, it's $500,000.
We've seen that.
We've seen that. We're doing that. So, and you know your system's old, so you've got to do the maintenance of your systems, and that gets it very expensive. I don't know, the 12-inch or 16-inch water line that just broke, I mean, that was how many man hours to repair that? Pardon? 700 man hours to make that line repair. Yeah. I don't know what it would cost to replace a section of that 16-inch pipe, but pretty expensive. And it's what, 11 feet deep? Yeah. It's down there. Yeah. So do you have any questions for me?
I'd like the golf board to have a meeting so they can discuss ideas of how to decrease their budget.
Yeah, well, the issue here is that the city transfers $300,000 from the utility fund for that operation, so that's a big number. Maybe you close the golf course on Mondays, or maybe there's a month during the year that you close it. I mean, I don't know, but it takes a certain number of people to operate the golf course and to mow it and do the maintenance. So, and it's all primarily personnel. So the only way you really reduce your costs there are to reduce your personnel costs. You do have some maintenance costs. I'll throw out a wild idea. You close it for a year, you save $600,000, you replace the irrigation system and you reopen it. I mean, but those are, excuse me, those are the kind of issues you have. I live at Surrey Hills, on Surrey Hills. They lost all their greens because they had irrigation problems. They've reseeded all the greens. They have the course open, but there's maybe half a dozen people that play it because you have a flag stuck in the middle of the fairway as your green. And their green, they won't really have their course back operational until next spring. So they have the course open, but there isn't any play on it. And they have the personnel cost of running the course. So it's not an easy thing to fix. But I'd certainly do that, and I think they meet on a quarterly basis, and we've had some of those discussions. But if you look at your expenditure budget, and you see how much you're spending in maintenance and seeing how much you're spending in personnel for that maintenance, if you could capture that dollar figure, you could finance the irrigation system. The problem is the interim. I mean, the question is, do you close the whole course? Do you close 9 courses? Do you close it 1 month a year, 2 months a year? What do you do? We ran up when I was in Owasso. We had a public golf course. $650,000 budget a year, and 1 year we broke even. The next year we might make $20,000. Next year we lose $20,000. I mean, it's one of those quality of life issues that it costs a certain amount of money to run one.
The irrigation system out there, because it's part of the municipality, all the plans would have to go through an engineer, or could a local plumber, irrigation specialist around here take part in it?
You could do a force account. You could do it through a force account, but you still need a set of plans. You need someone to put a irrigation plan together. The plan is what's going to cost you money. I've talked to a couple of companies that might be interested in doing a long-term management program and sort of a joint venture with the golf course and fund the irrigation system. But now you're looking at a 12, 15-year management agreement in order to, and that can be problematic.
Right.
there's no easy, unfortunately, there's not an easy answer there.
Any other questions?
Is the council interested in a workshop?
Or
Budget workshop?
The 7th. I'm throwing that date out there.
The 7th. 7th? This is Thursday. Next Thursday. Sure is. We won't be making any changes unless, excuse me, we won't be making any changes to what we've submitted unless I get some feedback from you, and we can certainly talk about that. But I think the purpose of the workshop would be to go back through and see where we are.
Is that enough homework, Tom?
you don't have much choice. Probably got public hearing next week. Is that agreeable?
Yeah.
Sounds okay, Mr.
You wanna be?
Just remember our little formula.
Even Scott can. Face it.
Our little formula is revenue minus expenditures equals fund balance. So if you change one of the numbers, the other two change.
Okay.
7th at, you want to do it early or?
5 o'clock?
What time, Sean?
Sean?
5's fine.
5.
5? Next Thursday. Okay, thank you.
All right, reports and comments from city manager and council members. Any reports and comments?
I have none.
I had one, but not anymore.
Okay, anybody?
Hold off on
New business? We're adjourned.